Yeah, the reason why I say you're going into this with the wrong expectations is because the show doesn't take itself too seriously. There is a bit of a goofball humor. In fact, Marika herself often gets incredibly flustered, which is kind of understandable considering that she's thrown into one ludicrous situation after another, so time and time again.
Oh yeah, only sane man thrown into insane situation.
Pretty much, yeah. It's kind of odd how to explain something like this, because I think I say character piece to the fact that obviously with a title like Bodacious Space Pirates, it's not going to into great depth about the questioning the meaning of life or anything like that, you know, it's...
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's kind of like the writers took a look at this premise and then just thought, okay, how can we make this logical and have these characters act like real people so that it feels even faintly realistic? And because of that, there's a lot of thought actually put into the world and how it works. Like, for example, the reason space pirates still exist and why Marika is able to both be a high school girl and a pirate without being arrested, basically, is that basically in the backstory of this world, the Sea of the Morning Star was part of this war against this group called the Alliance. They have yet to have any significance to the plot, and I don't think they will do anything special. But their armies were pretty weak and couldn't do much, so they created this piece of legislation called the Letter of Marque, which is basically handed out to space pirates and pretty much says, we will legalize all of your actions as long as you go after the targets we ask you to do. So during the war, they were told to go after Alliance ships and just nick their stuff so that they would be much weaker in battle.
Oh, I appreciate that, because that's actually a very accurate historical reference.
Exactly. There's that, and then the loophole still sticks around, and most of the time, although extreme situations do happen where Marika has to go to actual battle, most of the actual work for space pirates is being hired by insurance companies to basically raid passenger ships so that basically the passengers and ships have to claim off the insurance because of pirate attacks.
Piracy working for insurance companies. There's a new one.
Yeah, I know, right? It's exactly what I mean. The world actually has a lot of thought put into it, so you can kind of see how it works. In fact, even outside of the war, when the pirates actually go about their piracy, the best way to describe it is that it's kind of like the Dark Age reenactments I do. It's more of the pirates raid the ship, but they actually ham it up so that it's more like a show rather than a fierce life-to-the-death attack that actually has to involve them killing people.
I see the likability in that.
And bizarrely enough, it also explains like Marika's pirate costume as well, because the first when you first look at these pirates, you think, okay, these costumes look silly, but then when you realise they're doing it more for the theatricality rather than going into a practical situation, then yeah, the costume actually makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I can see that.
Now, you may be wondering why there's not so much action, and the reason is because of the approach, which, like I said, is thinking how we can make this even remotely realistic. There are occasional ship battles, because not every ship is expecting the pirates' arrival. Sometimes they do actually engage in combat, but every ship battle, most of the time, what it focuses on is the characters and strategy. Because once the actual battle gets underway, it's usually over very, very quickly. It's like the ship either fires its cannons or just jams their radio signal and then flies off. Most of the time, the actual tension during the build-up is usually the characters reacting to the sight of the ship and just exploring their options, like, should we try and jam their defense systems first? Are they responding to any of our hails? How powerful are our cannons? Do we think we can breach their hull, etc.? And then pretty much over in a flash. So the battles visually are quite boring, but in terms of what's actually going on, there's actually quite a lot of tension and strategy involved, which is, again, an interesting approach considering the titles. And I actually kind of like it. The only slight problem is that a lot of people, there's always the occasional comment who just go, when are we ever going to get to the action? This is so boring. I think so many people, they see the title, they go in expecting these high-octane action premise, and are kind of let down by the fact that characters actually use common sense in this. that's why it's kind of difficult talking about Bodacious Space Pirates, because what I'm describing, to some people, it's absolutely amazing. To some people, it sounds really boring, and it's entirely a subjective thing, because whether or not you can enjoy this show entirely depends on how you interpret the scenes, because admittedly, there are some times when the show could stand to actually show what's going on rather than tell it. But at the same time, the dialogue is actually well written and pays attention to detail, and nothing ever actually feels contrived in said plot. The characters actually do think things through, and this is a vague spoiler for one episode, but there's actually one episode that looks like it's going to end with a massive brawl-stroke gunfight, but the situation is quickly diffused because it turns out Malika had the sense to actually contact someone on the other side and then try and make some negotiation to quickly end the fights if it ever looked like it was going to escalate.
Wow. Actually using sensible logic in a... Wait, a main protagonist actually using sensible logic in an anime series.
I know, right? It's
Ichigo, is this where all your basic human instincts went?
That's pretty much the dividing line that exists in Bodacious Space Pirates. There is some silliness to be hazarded, but there's not as much as some people would expect. And I will admit there have been times when I've watched episodes and think, okay, did anything actually happen in this? Because the pacing is kind of slow, and again, the show doesn't really sacrifice logic in order to get to the action scenes, so there are moments when the climaxes may seem a bit dull, but at the same time, if you like a piece that does have well-written characters combined with a silly premise, then I actually would recommend this. And whilst I can't really think of a definite conclusion or really describe very well why I like it, I am actually really enjoying this show. And the only embarrassment I can say I have with watching this show is actually telling people its name. That's the name of a silly mindless fan service show, and it turns out to be anything but. That's the only way I can describe this show.
Yeah, well, I suppose it could be worse. It could be like me trying to talk my way out of the title of a show I watch. You know, My Little Pony. Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, I think this is the first time Sven revealed it in recording, but yes, Sven is a brony now.
Not the insane sort, I like to think, but still enough to make me feel like a woman.
Oh,
I'll get to that in another show.
Well, the fact that the term brony exists suggests that you don't really need to think that way, but anyway,
Yeah, I'll get around to that in another show, and I suppose it comes as no surprise given that I am a massive, massive Ouran Host Club fan.
But yeah, to be honest, this is going completely off topic, but I honestly don't think you should be ashamed for liking those shows, because from what I've seen, they have actually reached their demographic, and while admittedly I haven't watched of MLP or have any specific plans to, from what I've seen, I can see why people like it, is what I'm trying to say, so...
Yeah, I can too, and trust me, I don't like it because I'm some deviant and like the girliness. I like it for much the same reason as you like Bodacious Space Pirates. That title is still strange to say. It makes me sound like I'm describing a fetish of yours now.
How do you think I feel? I mean,
yes, you like Bodacious Space Pirates. You're into Bodacious Space Pirates. But yes, I like the show for much the same reason as you like this show, so I suppose we haven't gotten too much off topic.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, there's pretty much no way to describe this show. It defies all expectations. I would actually recommend that people watch it. I mean, even if you can't get over the pacing, I recommend you at least watch the first few episodes. And honestly, I am enjoying this show. I am going to continue watching, and I will continue being embarrassed whenever I describe this show, unless I can find some acronym for it. I'll just call it BSP. There we go. BS Space Pirates. Oh no, BS Space Pirates sounds even worse now.
That makes it sound even more like an action comedy, you know, bull Space Pirates.
Yeah, that's what I was getting off. Jeez. Oh, sigh. But yeah, that's the upshot of it. Silly title, but I'd still recommend it. Moving on. It's time to get out of this loop and then move on to...
Quickfire Reviews!
It's now time for us to review everything else we've read, watched or played, but within a maximum time limit of 60 seconds. Okay, time to get our reviewing caps on. Sven, you said you had a couple of things to review here?
Actually, literally a couple. I have 2 things to review.
Oh, hooray.
First off the bat, I've been once again getting really heavily into Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, and basically to sum up my opinions on this, I will quote the infinite wisdom of Chris Rock. This is bananas. Also, I love it.
Fair enough, kind of reminds me of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in that sense.
Yeah, it's insanity, the series. Going back to the point we made earlier, if you want to get into a series that is, at the same time, both intriguing and makes no sense whatsoever, Discworld is your go-to.
Maybe I'll check that out someday.
The novels aren't actually epic length, too, so you might actually get to finish them in your lifetime.
Hooray! Okay, I'll just cut in here.
In movies, I've recently watched 4, yet another one of Marvel's superhero movies, and again linked into their whole Avengers line as part of the build-up. It's a pretty okay movie, it's got lots of fun action, and some pretty amusing quotes. The only problem is the pacing is kind of ridiculously fast, and I swear the villain's motivation really doesn't make that much sense.
Well, I suppose it could be worse. It could make as much sense as most shonen anime's villains' motivation.
Actually, it's almost on that part.
What?
Okay, I'm trying to figure the best way to...
How do you get to the... How does one reach that level nowadays?
Anyway, Sven, you're up.
Right.
This isn't really much of a review, but just for the interested parties, Dragon Force have released 2 new songs, and neither of them are at supersonic speed. Ergo, I actually found myself enjoying them, because I could hear the vocals. Ergo, I finally recommend Dragon Force fully.
Hooray! I've already heard one. Cry Thunder was one of the songs that was...
Yeah, the one that's actually, typical power metal pacing.
The one I can actually understand it? What the...
Yeah, the one that you can actually make out lyrics among the speed and all the weenily guitars.
Oh, Sven emailed me the song a while back, and I'm just going to quote the response I made to him at the time. This is a really awesome song, but how can it exist?
Pretty much. And they've done it again. They've made another one that it's fast, but it matches nowhere near what you'd expect from them. And I'm just sitting there like, did getting a new singer cause them to go through some black hole wherein everything we know and love is first? Well, in this case, not really a love, because we can't even hear the singer over the guitars.
Well, actually, I do have this video in my head of just the guy going, okay, if I'm gonna join you guys, my lyrics have to be heard. I don't...
Yeah, I'm thinking that exact same thing, because... Funny story, their last singer quit due to insurmountable creative differences.
Oh, wow. Anyway, might as well wrap this off with a couple more things. I have a feeling they're going to lead on to discussion as well.
In the games department, I've been playing 2 Mario games. The first one I've been playing for the past week or so was Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, the first game in that trilogy. It's alright, the bits with Bowser was a lot of fun, and the combat system is still as enjoyable as ever, but it's kind of hard to describe, but there's something about the story or the way its presentation that just makes me miss Superstar Saga, so it's definitely not a bad game, but I can't say it's going to be one of my favorites.
So in other words, as DS games go, you prefer to recommend things like Jungle Climber.
Pretty much, yeah. That leads me on to the next Mario game.
This is a Mario game for the 3DS, which I have literally picked up this afternoon from my rental service. Mario Kart 3DS. I've only been able to play this for about an hour, and so far I've only played through 3 cups, so I can't really say that much about the game. I'll have to say that till later, but I will say this. God damn, the track design keeps getting better and better. That's really all I can say about it. I just absolutely love the tracks, especially the ones on Woohoo Island. They're pretty cool.
Just for the record, I will never be able to take the name Woohoo Island seriously, but that's another point.
Yeah, fair enough. I can understand why.
Because all I can think of is that Motorola commercial, woohoo, woohoo.
Count yourself lucky. At least your national team didn't have that as an anthem at one point. Anyway.